Leaks introduces this AI rendered voice generated from an essay written by Professor Robert Gordon, former personal secretary to, and the first Western person designated as a Brahmachari, and deerskin carrier, by Maharishi. These skin boys, as they were called in the TM movement, were close confidants of Maharishi, who saw the inner workings of Maharishi's inner circle. Robert has a PhD from Princeton University. He has held posts at the Universities of California, New Mexico, and Oregon, with a specialty in American religious history. Part 19, Whispers of Deceit, Unmasking the Shadows Behind Maharishi's Image. After one of these mail sessions, Maharishi made of me a strange request. He wanted me to call a devotee in Delhi and ask her to purchase saris, one for each day of the month, he told me, of the finest silk chiffon in the brightest and most beautiful colors. She was to include in the package, sent as soon as possible, a refined golden necklace and 3 bracelets of similar quality. Shortly thereafter a big box arrived air freight, and I was with Maharishi when he eagerly opened it to ascertain the quality of its contents. He was pleased. 2 days later, this time late at night, Maharishi told me to go get Belinda to work on the mail. Imagine my surprise when she answered my knock and appeared wearing one of the new saris, the gold jewelry, and now makeup too. My mind flashed back to Rishikesh and Judith similarly arrayed, with a built-in excuse for a late-night visit, to read him some poems. Now Belinda was Judith all over again, differing only in the change of excuse from poems to mail. My little oak of doubt, planted in Rishikesh, got a big dose of miracle grow and leafed further out. More leaves appeared when I brought Belinda to Maharishi's room. He greeted her effusively, told me to go and rest, and shut the door, again a strange request since the skin boy never leaves until the last visitor is gone and Maharishi is done for the day. And more late night do the mail visits followed. I became ever more suspicious about what was going on, especially when, one night, Maharishi failed to tell me to go and rest when I brought Belinda to him. And so, I dutifully waited outside Maharishi's door until Belinda finally emerged looking all rumpled and mussed. Later, my fellow skin boy Casey told me he went to fetch Belinda once, and it seems she wasn't up for cosplay that night. He could see she was naked except for a none too well secured bathrobe. Now the final act in the drama was to confirm my growing suspicions. The final actress in the soap opera now takes the stage. She is June, a bright, bubbly, blonde, blue-eyed bundle of energy, a member of the international staff and one of my closest friends. From the outset, we became like brother and sister, so dear was our bond. Soon after Belinda's late-night bathrobe visit with Maharishi, I had just left the master's room and was on the way to bed when I encountered June in the hall of the Samoa. She was evidently discombobulated and distressed, so I asked her what was wrong. She told me that evening she had been working with Maharishi on some project when he suddenly put his hand down her peasant blouse and copped a lingering feel. In a sternly rebuking tone, he then told her not to wear such a low-cut blouse, the old blame the victim ploy. She said she managed some sort of apologetic reply, and quickly left. Now she asked me what I thought. Was this some sort of cosmic lesson about being too alluring, she wondered, or was it a Mia Farrow type of thing? Farrow's story, which of course we had heard when it first broke after the Beatles left India, and had long ago true-believerishly discounted, suddenly took on much greater credibility. What if Mia and the Beatles spoke the truth? The image of Maharishi's hand in June's blouse, one we had bought together in Palma, the capital of Majorca, on some mission for Maharishi, now suddenly burst with graphic clarity in my mind's eye. This image finally breached my psychic dam of true believerhood, did it to my sister. I now poured out my heart to June. I revealed my growing misgivings about the master. I told her of Judith's late-night visits with Maharishi in Rishikesh to read poems, and Belinda's late-night visits, ongoing in the Samoa, to do the mail. And the saris, and gold jewelry, and makeup. And the rumpled and mussed part, and Casey's bathrobe story, too. And now, before my very eyes, was a much beloved and deeply trusted sister with a Maharishi #MeToo story of her own. Many new leaves sprouted on my oak of doubt. Many more would green up when the following went down. Next night, June heard a knock on her door. It was none other than Belinda, who during the previous weeks on the course had become good friends with June. My conversation with June of the night before well primed her for what she was about to hear. Belinda, in obvious distress, painfully divulged her body story. She revealed she had been sleeping with Maharishi for some time now, that it was becoming ever more disgusting, and that she was in crisis about what to do. Did she have a special cosmic role to play in Maharishi's life, or was he just a hypocritical lecher, preaching celibacy to the flock while himself taking delight in the flesh of the choicest young ewes? It was clear that Belinda thought she was the only one and had no knowledge of Maharishi's other dalliances. June now stirred the simmering pot of disillusion. It would soon be brought to a furious boil. Part 20, Bubbling Scandals and Secret Escapes, Unveiling Maharishi's Controversial Relationships. Did she have a special cosmic role to play in Maharishi's life, or was he just a hypocritical lecher, preaching celibacy to the flock while himself taking delight in the flesh of the choicest young ewes? It was clear that Belinda thought she was the only one and had no knowledge of Maharishi's other dalliances. June now stirred the simmering pot of disillusion. It would soon be brought to a furious boil. With the heat turned up by Belinda's tawdry revelation, June went directly to Judith to confront her with what I had surmised, that Judith was also Maharishi's consort. June straight up asked, "Did you fuck Maharishi?" Judith's sheepish look and embarrassed silence gave June her answer. June then told Judith that she wasn't the only one, that there was another woman also on the course who had an ongoing, intimate relationship with Maharishi now. June also told Judith her peasant blouse story. The two now bonded as members of the Sisterhood of Sexy Sadie victims, and June left to have a further talk with Belinda, the other woman on the course who was in an intimate relationship with Maharishi now. June went straight to Belinda and told her that she couldn't be special, because Elle just talked with a girl right here in the Hotel Samoa named Judith, who has been Maharishi's sexual partner ever since the last initiator course in Rishikesh. Deeply angered by this revelation, Belinda decided to confront the other. Judith tells us what happened next. 1 or 2 days later, the other woman involved, Belinda, snuck into my room at night so we could speak openly. Speak openly they did. When they had shared their stories, and outrage, Judith says they formed a sort of sisterhood since they were both in the middle of a situation that we didn't really know how to cope with. Ned Wynn, in We Will Always Live in Beverly Hills, tells us of Belinda's mindset in this moment. She told him after the fact that she felt Maharishi used his power and his aura to take advantage of her. Once the blinders were off, she felt abused and cheated, as if she had been fucked in a stupor. I was amazed by the distaste with which Belinda referred to her sex with Maharishi. Now all three girls knew of each other's Sexy Sadie story, and were pissed. June had been fondled, Judith and Belinda fucked, all by the supposedly perfect, celibate master. Long simmering, the pot had been brought to the boil. June, one to poke the bear, then went directly to Maharishi with stick in hand. She told him that Judith and Belinda had compared stories about the master, and knew what he was up to. Maharishi now had a serious problem. Both of his chosen ones were now aware they were neither cosmically chosen nor the only one. It was patently clear that if there were two, neither could be the chosen one. And there was every reason to believe that there were others too. And what would he do if they talked, as Mia and the Beatles had done? The bear was in high dudgeon. June then returned, first to Judith, and then to Belinda, to tell them Maharishi now knew they were on to him. Alone with June, Belinda told her she was considerably worried about what was to happen now that Maharishi knew she had revealed his feet of clay. She decided she didn't want to be around to find out. She and June conspired to hatch an escape plan. The drama only intensified the next morning when, throughout the Hotel Samoa, the hue and cry rang out, "Where's Belinda?" This scene opened first thing that morning, when Maharishi called me into his room to begin the day's activities. I could tell he was considerably low on effervescence. No wonder, given the soap operatic happenings of the night before, when Maharishi found out that his two chosen ones had met and blown his cover. He gravely told me to summon Belinda to his room. When I knocked on her door, I got no answer. When a second knock went unanswered, I tried the door and peeked in to see if she might be sleeping. The room was empty. The OL effervescence took a devastating hit when I brought Maharishi this disquieting news. His face darkened, and he curtly told me to spread word of her disappearance and find out if anyone knew where she had gone. Late that afternoon, one of the international staff reported that he had seen June and Belinda loading suitcases into the trusty little VW Beetle. June and I drove about the island when on missions for Maharishi. They left just before dawn, the staffer reported, and then drove north on the road to Manipur, today the site of Rafa's famous tennis academy. Part 21, Shattered Illusions, Unveiling the Dark Reality Behind a Spiritual Icon. Late that afternoon, one of the international staff reported that he had seen June and Belinda loading suitcases into the trusty little VW Beetle. June and I drove about the island when on missions for Maharishi. They left just before dawn, the staffer reported, and then drove north on the road to Manipur, today the site of Rafa's famous tennis academy. June was called on the carpet and confessed that she had driven Belinda to the airport in Palma. Further interrogation revealed Belinda's destination, Haus Sieblick, previously a boutique luxury hotel and now the international headquarters of the TM movement, located in the beautiful little Swiss town of Seelisberg. Perched on a rocky outcrop, Haus Sieblick overlooked the Rutli, a grassy knoll sacred in Switzerland as the birthplace of Swiss democracy. Lapping this lovely site was Lake Lucene, ringed by distant often snow-capped mountains. I had spent many nights at Haus Sieblick during various European missions for Maharishi. It was the perfect refuge for Belinda, as June explained, for her to be away from Maharishi and sort out her feelings and options. Maharishi immediately had me call Bev and Fran, the good-hearted Australian lassies that ran the international office, and tell them to inform him of Belinda's arrival. Soon after, they rang, and put him through to Belinda's room. When she came on the line, he told me to leave and close the door. I sat there for over an hour as he pleaded with her to return. He sounded like a lovesick teenager who had just been dumped by his girl. Much new foliage now grew on my oak of doubt. He did not sound very much like a fully realized, perfect master, untouched by emotions of the common folk. He sounded just like any other guy who wanted his gal back. Denouncement. That night, great branches sprang forth on my oak when June and I took a long walk on the beach, and she told me the whole story, the story of her boiling the pot, poking the bear, and blowing things up, to mix 3 metaphors. Now June, Belinda, Judith, and I all faced the same problem. We had discovered that our silk-robed perfect master was a clay-footed sexual predator. The ladies suffered this revelation because they were his direct victims. Because I was not just a devotee, I was his first Western Brahmachari, who had to face the fact that the very master with whom I had taken my vows was in fact himself a serial violator of them. What were we going to do? All 4 of us would decide, each in our own painful way, that we could no longer call Maharishi master. Scoreboard. Recall now the heated debate we set out to settle at the beginning of this saga, when the press widely reported that Mia Farrow left India because Maharishi attempted to seduce her. Controversy arose over the veracity of this account, scurrilous nonsense or evidence-based fact. Here's the score for team evidence. Mia groped and attempted seduction, Rosalind ditto, but twice. Gunilla groped and propositioned, the unidentified British girl groped, Linda full sex, Judith full sex, Belinda full sex, the lovely full sex, likely, so a point, June groped, and finally, the young British girls Maharishi entertained behind locked doors in London. Victim numbers and consequences unknown, so no point, but worth remembering. Final score, team evidence 9, team nonsense 0. And then there's the tally kept by Susan Shumsky, the world's expert on this subject. In Inner Light, she tells us, "I personally know 15 women who have said that Maharishi made sexual overtures towards them. Some liaisons lasted months or years. During her 20 years with Maharishi, she also came to know many of his skin boys." She reports, Maharishi's doorkeepers often witnessed women coming and going from his private chambers early in the morning or late at night. They jokingly nicknamed the women girlfriends, while unaware they actually were girlfriends. Susan tells of one skin boy who was regularly asked by Maharishi to leave the master's room key with various young lovelies. Oh, and Susan has also turned up a grown woman, said to be Maharishi's daughter, who bears an uncanny resemblance to him. Game over. Part 22, Unmasking the Master, Revelations of Deception and Betrayal within the TM Movement. She reports, Maharishi's doorkeepers often witnessed women coming and going from his private chambers early in the morning or late at night. They jokingly nicknamed the women girlfriends, while unaware they actually were girlfriends. Susan tells of one skin boy who was regularly asked by Maharishi to leave the master's room key with various young lovelies. Oh, and Susan has also turned up a grown woman, said to be Maharishi's daughter, who bears an uncanny resemblance to him. Game over. Afterward, many years after I left the TM movement, out of the blue I got a call from Judith Bork, with whom I had had no contact since our days together in Rishikesh and Majorca. She was calling with a specific purpose. She had been reading the exchanges in a chat group of ex-TMers to which I belonged. She explained that the exchanges nurtured in her a growing desire to tell her sexy Sadie story. After long years of silence and soul-searching, she had decided it was time to write an expose of her too-long-year affair with Maharishi. She said that when she was reading one of my posts in the chat group, she came across my discussion of a plan I once had to write a book on the very same subject. The plan arose out of a chance discussion I had with a literary agent at a party in New York. I was then in grad school at Princeton University, my scholarly focus the wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson. I had taken the hour-long train ride into the Big Apple for the party. In casual chat with the agent, the subject of TM came up, and I told him the reason why I left the movement, the sexy Sadie stuff, and that I had been thinking of writing a book on the subject. He immediately saw the commercial potential for such a book, given the fact that Maharishi's movement was now at its zenith. He was confident that a tell-all book had the potential to really sell. He especially liked my proposed title, Robes of Silk, Feet of Clay. In the event, when I had written the chapter outlines the agent requested, I realized there was no way I could both write a book and fulfill the onerous demands of the doctoral program at Princeton. I put off writing the book for some vague other day. And now, all these many years later, Judith was calling with a specific purpose. She wanted permission to use my proposed title for her own book. She said that when she read in a chat post those 6 words of my title, she realized I'd enjoy when the final exclamation mark was struck on the saga of sexy Sadie. It came to pass when I drove to LA from my home in Palm Springs to be with Judith on the movie lot of They Were the Perfect and Catchy summation of her own story. I was only too happy to grant her permission, and even offered to write an afterword for her book. It would corroborate her account from my own direct experience. Well, Judith did write the book, which did include my afterword. You can imagine my Warner Brothers studios. We were there for the annual award ceremony of the Society of Voice Arts, SOVAs. It was a real Hollywood red carpet and tuxes, good thing I had a nice Perry Ellis and gowns affair. The glitz and glamour of the whole magical night was topped off when Judith won the award for Author Performance, Best Voiceover, for the audio version of Robes of Silk, Feet of Clay. And, having flown in from Florida for the occasion, was Rosalind Bonus, yes that Rosalind, the one who blew the Beatles' volcanic top in Rishikesh. Her presence somehow brought the saga of sexy Sadie full circle.